So the Sanctuary of Light and the Light Institute welcome each and all of you to this time of knowings and invite you to speak forward the energies, the conversations of your hearts, so that we can together build an energy that supports our lives and the lives of all the people who are out there listening. So please just speak out anything that you would like to converse about.
Hi.
Hello.
It's wonderful to be in your presence. I have a question about an emotion, the emotion of sadness. I'm sure you're familiar with Dr. Emoto's study on molecular structure of water.
Yes.
And if we're in a higher vibration, the crystals make a nice pattern. And so using that on the body, I know sadness is a more contracting, downward emotion. And I'm in a place right now where the last few days I'm experiencing sadness. And I want to be true to the emotion, true to my emotional truth. And yet I want to, I don't know if that's a healthy thing, because lifting up and all, could you guide me on that? Thank you.
The thing about sadness is that it's addictive. When we are sad, we put out a biochemical energy, which is what makes those crystals do that. An electromagnetic biochemical vibration that comes from that sadness. We never want to say, I'm not sad, I will pretend to be something else. But there is a conversation, a gift in that sadness that you could peel through with your emotional mind, not your intellectual mind, but your emotional mind, so that you can shift in truth from that place. And first of all, go over in your consciousness, ask your body, is this sadness mine? Because what happens on the planet is that we have big shifts that go on. Sometimes 10,000 people die, or someone you know is going through a trauma. Somebody that you don't think is even close to you is going through a trauma. And because you've known them in many incarnations of the soul, you pick up their energy, and then you just feel sad. And you feel encapsulated, and what's the point in all of those kinds of conversations that come up. So you want to make sure that it's yours. If you get no, you just ask, is this mine? And if you get no, then you want to extend energy out. You might be able to say, to whom does this belong? And see a face or hear people living up here or something like that. And then always just drawing the white light, or not white light, excuse me, the color in and extending it to what color do you need to be released. And extend it to them. You'll find that about 90% of the time, you will shift by just doing that. The second part is if you get, yes, it's mine. You don't want to start doing because. I'm justified to be sad because somebody just died, because things aren't working the way I want, etc., etc. You don't want to go there. You want to deal with the sadness as an energy, not as a conversation, as an energy. And so if you simply, where am I holding the sadness in my body? So your body doesn't really want to be sad, even if it's being fed by the biochemistry of sadness through its habituation. Your body wants to shift up. And so if you feed the body light, it'll let go of the sadness. The way the emotional body works is it will not let go of the sadness unless something else that's real, not something that you go, oh well, I'm going to be a Pollyanna here, but something else that's real comes up for it. So when you clear away, where am I holding the sadness? What color does it need to be released? Then you can begin to use your consciousness to choose a thought or a possibility that can uplift you. And so sadness is a contraction like fear, but I would say it's worse than fear because it's so addictive. And all of our cultures are based on the justification of sadness. You know, if you're sad, then you couldn't be a bad person if you're sad. Because sadness is held to be an honorable emotion. the same way we hold suffering as an honorable emotion. And so it is ourselves who are here to not choose it for us. And by not choosing it for us, the rest of the world will have that burst of freedom as well. So you can do it the other way as well. Where am I holding joy? Because sadness, fear, they're dense. And that's why they're addictive. Whereas joy or ecstasy, it's very fleeting. We can't hold that light for a very long time. But also you could do an exercise in consciousness such as, let's see, let me think of a moment when I was truly happy. You see, so often we forget those moments. They're so fast. And they're so much a part of our true selves. And we are so entangled in our illusions of who we are that we forget that we have all, no matter what childhood you've had, no matter what experiences you're having now, have points of reference for ecstasy, rapture, bliss. It might be a sexual thing, it might be a spiritual thing, which are, of course, connected. It might be an aha that comes to you. It might be a physical thing. Just allowing yourself to open to that will shift the sadness. The sadness does not nourish you. And so when we want to honor ourselves, we really want to be able to say, I'll choose something else. Not forcing it, not putting on the face of it, but just reaching for it. So not pretending you're not sad. No, we're allowed our grief, we're allowed our sadness, but we can use consciousness to filter that. Is this something I really feel like getting into? It could be just your menstrual cycle. It could be what's happening in the moon. It could be sun flares. It could be cloudy days. Today we have had a sky full of galactic ships all day long. That will trigger people's emotions, etc., etc. And that's why so often, again, we want to stay away from what's my justification for being sad, because that equals I don't have to, because I don't have to be my best. I don't have to prove it to someone else. I don't have to try because I'm sad and I'm justified in being sad. So you see, that's a possessive emotional voice that wants you to keep repeating that sadness so it can feed off it. It's not your true self. Once we can separate that out, then we can use the sadness, but we can also dispense with it. So it's not don't be sad, it's what else is there? What else is there? There's a lot. There's a lot out there waiting for you. So often, people, situations, opportunities are waiting for us, but because we're mulling around inside ourselves, they can't get through. And so that becomes that vicious cycle. I'm sad because my life isn't working out because someone doesn't love me, but all the people that love you are standing in line waiting for you to get over being sad so they could get in. Etc., etc., etc. Break free.
Thank you so much.
And it's really not your nature.
No.
No, it's not. So I would suspect that you've sucked up something. Again, we go through cycles in our life, and we've just been through a 3-month cycle where people and situations that have been a part of our past have come forward. And so the likelihood of you sucking in somebody else's stuff is really, really great. So you want to say, okay, not mine. Here's what I have to offer that, and go free. Yeah. What else? What else?
Can you talk about the difference between the astral body and the light body?
Yes. There's a huge difference, you will know. And it's important for us to begin to recognize it, because we throw around the terms a lot and we have different perspectives of it. But here at the Light Institute, we're very specific about the difference between the spirit and the soul, the astral body and the light body. The astral body is a form and matter, which is the form of the emotional body. So it looks like the self. And it's the astral body that travels at night. It's the astral body if you're drunk or you're having an operation or you're dreaming. I dreamt of you and the Queen last night. You were giving sessions to the Queen of England, by the way, speaking of Queen. I never dream things like that, so who knows? But I did.
I did the same thing.
Yeah, wow. Okay, so when we dream, it's the astral body, and it moves out from the physical form. It takes the emotions at the time. That's why dreaming is so important, because it allows us to express, to release the congestion of our emotions, our fears, the energies that we've been carrying around, and place them someplace so they can be played out. So the astral body will go into the astral sleeve. Now, the astral dimension has many, many layers of strata, from what you would call hell to what you would call heaven to the Devic kingdom. But the thing about the astral is that unmeasurable amounts of emotional energy, emotional personality, emotional particles, thought forms, particle thoughts are floating as if they were floating in a river. So when you go in, when you take on your astral body and you bilocate, whether you're dreaming or you're doing it purposely, you enter into that energetic. The problem with that is that we so often suck in the prevalent energy, whatever's triggered us into that particular strata. Again, maybe it's a sadness flow, maybe it's an anger flow, maybe it's a suicidal flow, and suddenly we become that. The astral body is porous. It bleeds out and it sucks in. It bleeds out and it sucks in. And that's why we wake up in the morning and we feel discombobulated, because we've been, all of us, always moving through those theta vibrations, alpha theta vibrations of the brain into this universal stream. So we can learn to use the astral body as we lift our emotional bodies, as we clear the emotional body, so that the sense of self is not separate from the divine, is not separate from infinite possibility, so that we can move that astral body into places where it serves humanity, where it serves the planet, where it serves the self, so that it has that sense of purpose, because the emotional body needs the ego. It needs a sense of self. Otherwise, it's the Looney Tunes for you. Contrary to 50 years of psychological imprints, the emotional body is dependent upon some level of ego. The trick is that the ego can open up. You can still know your name, but you can be a part of the cosmic flow. You can feel the divinity of the self. You came in an individuated form, although you are not individuated. That's why we suck in each other's emotions or feelings. We play out each other's lives. Most people do end up playing out their parents' lives. Heaven forbid. So as we come into close proximity with the essence of our emotional body, our astral body becomes more lighted. It becomes detached in that it can go where there's an earthquake. It can go where someone is dying. It can move around and amplify our sense of purpose, so that we wake up in the morning and we wake up with a sense of peace. Not with, how am I going to survive today? But whenever we are the givers, it brings us peace. So that body has texture. I have a number of times had people report that I've had conversations with them, that I have walked with them where I was not. And it looked just like me, talked just like me, but it was not me. Is that some kind of galactic hologram? Well, perhaps. But that is an astral energetic. The light body belongs to the vibration of the essence, we could say, at the latitude of our higher self. So people describe it as an amorphous, oval thing of light. So it has an adherence to our human body. You know, there's a vertical presentation of it, but it's more like an egg, people would say. That's because our auric field does bump into our higher chakras, which create vibrations around us in certain light frequencies that mostly are not available to human awareness. In other words, we don't see it like somebody might see an auric field, but we can feel that energy. I just came back from being with the whales in Baja California, where you cannot find the end of their auric fields. And they're very interesting because it's all about diagonal plates, but their auric fields go up into the sky beyond some place that we could call the ellipsis, or the curvature of space that defines Earth, or the Earth's, let's say, even the Earth's auric field, which is the electromagnetic energy that radiates out from the Earth. Whales' vibration goes beyond that and spreads out over the sea. So light body has that kind of coherence to something it's connected to, but not attached to. It does have an energetic about it, but not that matter level of it. What connects us to, and I love this, what connects us to our light body are our endocrine glands. Our endocrine glands are the point of reference of light. And so they are what allow us to become part of the cosmos. But they connect the highest energies to the source, to the first chakra. And that's what's so important for humans to recognize now. We are sexual, spiritual beings. Dolphins will show you that anytime. It doesn't mean we have to play it out only from a genital level, but it means we need to recognize, like children, that sexual energy is the divine spark of life. And that is what carries us through. And that is light. It is a light frequency. So through our endocrine glands and the hormones and the enzymes that they put out and the pulse that they have as they receive and use light to create life, that is what opens and expands the light body. I think that you could say the light body is akin to what I have seen several times, the soul either entering a newborn baby or the soul leaving a body, this brilliant flash of light, as there is, again, this detached energy. There's an interface. It reminds me, looking at light bodies, it reminds me of the way I see, or that my own higher self, my own inner voice has described to me, or shown me, that our universe is attached to infinite other universes, and that is an enfolding. So if you have a plane that comes like this, and then it curls up, and there's a plane that comes here and it curls down. So it creates this enfolding of universes, this smooth interface. And that is very similar to the way the light body enfolds with our endocrine, with the flashes of light that come from us. So when people talk about the auric field, they really are they're talking about light, but they're talking about light on the level of the astral body, because our auric field expresses our emotions. And that's why working your chakras every day, just relax. Because the second you have a negative thought, your chakra will go out there someplace, your auric field will fold in on itself. So what we want to do is, instead of trying to hold something, I want to hold the light, or I want to have my heart chakra open, what we need to do is be alive, to be human, and recognize that it's through our experiences that we actually have something to feed back to the unmanifest. So it's time to let go of a lot of spiritual, religious definition about this is what is and this is what isn't and this is how you get there. Because there's no place to go. There's no place to go. The entire universe is right here, pulsing within the endocrine, enfolding within these human forms, and separating out and breathing in, and separating out and breathing in. So that's what I'd say about light body and astral body. And it's an exciting time because I feel that we are, ready to use these bodies with consciousness. Before it's always been only someone, a master who has sat in the cave forever and ever, who can project out. No. The breath of every person who's ever been able to levitate or to bilocate is flowing around us. We have done it in other lifetimes. We humans are ready to use that, and to use it well. Not just to escape our bodies or escape a terrible situation, but to actually feel the pull on us. It says, be here. That's what happens when you sleep. There's something that pulls you someplace. It may pull you because of some fearful emotion, or it may pull you because in your light body or your astral body, you can be of service to life, to the divinity of life. What else?
You mentioned that the auric field of the whales and
The auric field, huh?
of the whales.
Yes.
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 I had an experience once with whales, and I didn't perceive it in exactly the way you described it, but it was a very magical experience. I could hear their vibration.
Yes.
It was like singing without words, and it was kind of what you're describing about things folding over onto each other. There's two whales in unison. It was very beautiful. And
Let me ask you a question. Were they the whales that sing? In other words, did you hear it as a vibration but also as a sound, or did you just hear it as a vibration? For example, the gray whales don't, quote, make sounds, whereas the ones in Hawaii do. So
boy, I don't know how to answer that, because on the inner, I heard music.
that's
I was
fabulous.
in the water. I was in the water in scuba diving,
Yes.
and I heard it, and I tried to sing with them, but I had all this stuff in my mouth, so obviously I couldn't, and I was underwater. But I experienced it
Yes.
as sensing their vibration,
Fabulous.
but as hearing it as a sound. And what was really magical about them is there were two, it was a pair, is their movement and their sound was so impeccably synchronized that it was really obvious the level of unison that they're capable of. So that was magical.
Mm.
And where I'm going with this is, I've had the opportunity to spend quite a bit of time with horses, both domestic and wild. And I find that the consciousness that they operate in is so far advanced to human consciousness that I feel like my job, cleaning, is service to masters. I truly do. And they seem to have what you're describing as that overlapping of consciousness, so that
Yes.
it seems to me that they are as individual as we are, but much more astute than we are about their connectedness.
That's right.
Can you speak to the reality of animals? Because what we were taught is not what I'm experiencing.
Well, heavens, I'm so glad. Actually, you are the perfect channel to speak about that you are opening that level of possibility, not only between themselves, but between them and us. All species communicate with all other species. If you just looked at it from a scientific perspective, you are a horse, you are a whale, you are a blue-green algae, you are a rose. And so what people don't recognize is that genetics is simply a pattern. It's just a guide. It's a code. And we can access that code at any time. What I'm finding right now is that the animal kingdom, the mineral kingdom, the plant kingdom, they are all really reaching towards our consciousness, so that we could get over the idea that we're the only ones that have these brilliant thoughts, that we can put things together. They may not put it together the way we do, but they get there faster than we do. We almost never get there. They start out there. And so it really behooves us. And again, it never matters whether you're shoveling the manure or you are sitting and tapping into them. It's irrelevant the way that we place ourselves in proximity to consciousness. Completely irrelevant. If humans could get that, we could certainly have more fun in our lives. You know, we're so busy saying I have to be important and I have to do something that's valuable, seen as valuable or or distinguished, rather than who am I in terms of this capacity, would be completely different. I'm just starting a book called Potential Brain, and I'm amused by how many brain researchers continue to repeat that conversation, that we are the only species that can think, that can pull ideas together. Well, the whales were here 2 million years longer than us. They probably gave up this petty little thing called intellect. There's another way, and sound is an expression of that, holographic, right at this second. Horses have always been seen as magical. They have always had, like dogs, a specific kind of quality that allows them to move through the filters and sense, not just because perhaps they can smell, it's not just because of the smelling, but it's something in them that allows that awareness to be there and to respond to it. And what's really interesting is to watch the way they respond. A horse knows what the rider is thinking and feeling. And they know how to move with that in order to change those energies, which is their gift to us. It's incredible that we could turn around and give them a gift as well by listening to them. I was saying the other day, because I have a new puppy, that we just have to laugh at ourselves because we talk baby talk to every four-legged. You should have listened to us talking to the whales. I mean, I just had to laugh. We do. On the other hand, when we make those squeaky little high-pitched, oh, you darling little thing sounds, maybe it's that vibration that is above the level of judgment, above the level of comparison that enters in there. But even if we're making those sounds, it's very important for us to begin to recognize that we're speaking to or in the presence of sentient beings. And so I think in the future, just like 25 years ago I said, humans will begin to feel the importance of raising children. Instead of feeling left out, we'll begin to feel what it's like to tap into that consciousness. Well, I feel now that there's another arc in here, and that we're beginning to do that with animals. It has started out, which it always does, but animals can make us feel better about ourselves. We know that it helps people that have physical problems, helps people who are elderly, but there's something else going on. And so all of those old conversations that says, only humans have souls, what an absurd idea. That just comes from our Judeo-Christic repertoire that says God has to be a human. I had an experience with a squid one time, and I'll tell you, God is a squid. So, God is a horse. And we could just skip the word God, we could get to it. And we could see how you can be a channel for that. So if you feel those vibrations, then that's something for you to speak about. And again, I find that sometimes our words get in the way when we're trying to show each other something. But we can always seed those energies. So the more people you bring to a horse, the more you open that. What else? Oh, come on.
What are we before we're born? Are we a light in an astral body before
We're
we're
not in the
born?
astral bodies, no.
Before-
But let me say that at the moment of conception, the astral body is implanted.
Mhm.
It permeates this cellular structure.
Mhm.
So the emotional body, with all of the astral energies, so from my perspective, our infinite incarnations of the soul come in. And that's why any mother will tell you that every baby in the womb has personality. It's already formed. It has a perspective and needs and conversations of its own. And so there is that individuation that takes place. And that individuation is is a point of reference of consciousness. When we say, all right, I have the blueprint, I have the map, my consciousness will then create a form, will create genetic encoding. And so we have the physical, and we have the emotional, and then we have the spiritual that encompasses the two of those. So right from the moment of conception, there is the astral body. But before that, we have reference to it. Because it's as if you could reach out and pull the threads of something that creates the web or the matrix of your own hologram, your purpose of embodiment. That creates the individuation that goes on there. So we do have access of it. In the old days they called it the Akashic record. But it always gave that concept as, you do and it's imprinted and it doesn't move, just this. Even today, not so much, but certainly still, we have the idea that genetics are frozen. Genes are just biochemical fluid things that pair up together. So there's no such thing as, your mother had cancer, so you're going to have cancer. The only reason you're going to have cancer because your mother had cancer is because you took on her personality and her perspective about her body, or her I want out or I want in. That's what makes the genetic attachment of molecules, So that idea of the Akashic record, yes, there is a composition or a vessel, storage vessel of all that you have garnered in your many incarnations. But what excites me is the teaching from my own higher self is that in every lifetime, that our experiences actually feed back. They don't just sit in some vessel someplace. They are fed back to the unmanifest. So that not only all the beings coming in will benefit from our human experiences, but the divine source itself is changed by our embodiment. If we could really get the potential of that, we could do something spectacular in terms of evolution. So, evolution is fluid, and the past is not frozen. Yes, the past does create the future because there is that arc, again, that enfolding. But it's not frozen like letters in a book. It's always pulsing. And that's why we do incarnational work here. Because we found that if you go back into a lifetime, whether those are emotions that you had there or whatever your story was there, how you lived, how you died, that will change who you are now and it'll change your potential future. So there's nothing frozen in the cosmos. Not the divine source, not God, nothing is static. Static is a human limitation of not understanding time and space. So the old ones would say, illumination or enlightenment is the space between the pulses, between the breaths. But that space is it's not some kind of erratic chaos. There's always purpose to direction. There's always potential in direction. There's always magnetism that attracts us here, repulses us there, and then builds or destroys. Those are just the laws of the cosmos. So, what are we before? We're pure consciousness. And perhaps that's the reason that we hurry back so. And if we only understood that even our negative experiences, our sadness, our whatever, is creating grooves that influence the direction of evolution, we would care a lot more about how we lived and what was important to us. I should say one more thing about that I find fascinating. Years ago it used to be, who am I, where am I going, and why? The old psychological 101. My higher self said about 15 years ago, skip that stuff. It's not who you are, because you never are what you were when you came in this room. Because your brain, your infinite potential brain, is being nourished by the cosmos and each other. So, if we again could see the back and forth of that, and one of the ways to recognize that is that we talk about the individuation. You're in an individual body. We know that emotionally and psychically you're attached to everybody else around here. But you're also bringing with you beings that you have known in other lifetimes. In other words, it's on a spiritual level, you're not the only one inhabiting your body. In other words, there is crystallization of soul energies that piggyback. Typically, there's more of that when someone comes into play a universal role, whether that's a Hitler or a Buddha or a Mary Magdalene or somebody whose name is going to be passed down, because the vibration has attached to it a channel of education, let's say, or evolution, better way to say that, that encompasses many particle souls. I don't like to use that because it gives the idea that there are little dots there, which will not really, but in other words, there are energies that come with you that also influence the directions that we take. Just as we were talking about before about sadness, this is yours, you know, and there's a thin line, I suppose, in psychology between being schizophrenic, you know, or having simultaneous lifetimes and having particle energetics utilizing your experience for their evolution. We can understand that simply by the fact that many people channel and have channeled in eons of time, you know. They've allowed other beings to use the vehicle to bring forth information, but what people don't understand is to complete some spirit's karma, something that they need to rebalance. It's time for us to say, you take care of your own, just come into your own body, I'll take care of mine. So that we channel only our own higher selves. Because even great spirits, great beings who are channeling through other people are doing so through a filter of their own incarnational experiences. So there always has to be contracts and vows through there. And we want to come to a place of consciousness that says, I will become consciously aware of those contracts and vows and release the ones that don't serve humanity or my own purpose, my own matrix, blueprint of embodiment. So the weave gets more complex and more complex, and in a way more delicious as we let go of the constriction of our separation. Just as you were talking about the horses and the whales, the one thing that many other animals have, besides not fearing death, is a community of consciousness. Many evolved cultures beyond the earth, and some in the earth, some within the earth, have those capacities, collective consciousness, that the good old Spock, for the good of the whole, energetic. And we are moving towards that. And that's why it's so important for us to feel again ourselves beyond any constrictions, whether they are mental or spiritual or physical. What else?
I'd like to ask a question that follows up on what you were just saying.
Yes.
What I heard you talking
Yes.
about is that we can act out simultaneous 2 lifetimes or 3 or whatever in one incarnation. So it's like time sharing.
So thank you. In a way. Except humans' perspective of time is way too limited for that conversation. So thank you. So let me clarify that. You would never be walking around in 2 bodies. In other words, there's not another one of you walking around the planet.
No.
No. So you could have simultaneous lifetime. Again, perhaps I should back up and say, when we speak of lifetimes, again, it's that old human inboxing kind of thing. Here's the beginning, here's the end. Well, the soul doesn't die with your body. It doesn't begin with your body. So all of these little squares that we've been in, ultimately, as we become more advanced, will fall away for us. Now, so incarnations of the soul, for example, in other dimensions, in the Devic kingdom, in the angelic kingdom, in the galactic worlds, don't begin and end the way we think of our human physical beginning and ending. So lifetime is just our way of talking about an incarnation of the soul, which could actually ripple through various places and bodies in actuality, which we don't want to get into. But you could be having a simultaneous lifetime in another dimension. You could be wandering around in the galactic kingdom or the devic kingdom. You're very devic. So you could be having an activated consciousness, let's say within a horse, that could serve you and serve the horse at this time. What happens with simultaneous lifetimes is all it's doing is adding potential to the pot so that more can be expressed. That's the reason people piggyback a particular soul, is that more can be experienced. The speed of evolution is amplified because there are all these points of view. There's your points of view, then there's the other points of view, and they dovetail. When we see this happening, as we're doing incarnational work, we very often will create a spin point. You can think of it as, in a way, it's like a vortex. It's a little bit different, but it's like a vortex that allows the energies of a simultaneous experience to pass through you. So that, for example, we're fussing about energy on this planet. Anybody could come up with the answers to that if they allowed those frequencies to move through them. And our human heart is altering the genetic encoding of many civilizations, not only from our galaxy, but from other galaxies. And it's so nice to be able to speak to you about this, because in the past, this was, a death signature to pretend that there's a possibility of galactic energies or consciousness within the plant kingdom, etc., etc. There's so much evidence today that it's just irrelevant, even amongst many scientists, to argue the point. For me, the point is, what can we do with it? What can we do with it? See, unless you really know the soul of a horse, you can't harvest the horse. Or you can harvest the horse only in a limited way. So we haven't begun to play with our potential, with our brain's potential, with the potential of our consciousness. And to release ourselves from the fear that we're just making it up. You can only make up something that already exists. If we don't have it here on this planet, I assure you, they have it elsewhere. We haven't, in our great, and we've got Atlantis. They split the atom, and we're breathless about splitting the atom today. Unfortunately, we haven't figured out that how to use it yet. So we could spin those in much more powerful ways than we have. So no, simultaneous lifetimes aren't there to make you schizophrenic, although they are comforting to some level. For example, it's common for people who are having galactic simultaneous lifetimes to feel that they didn't belong to their family, that they're outsiders, that nobody understands them, that there's something they're supposed to do but they can't figure out what it is, etc. Sometimes they have extra vertebrae, they have physical things, often they have a lot of allergies, all of which have to do with the karma of coming into the earth and saying, okay, I have to do this from the human perspective instead of snapping my fingers and manifesting something. So again, we can learn a lot by expanding our repertoire of who we are. I never say be grounded. I never say, what I feel is important is that you recognize that your ego self is capable of being the point of reference. We call it soul centering here, of the center of your soul. You are individuated. You are. Although on some levels, am I in your body, are you in mine? I said in one of my books. Yeah, we are. It just depends on what level you're looking. The most important thing is to be comfortable in your skin and say, I'm glad I'm in human form and I'm going to use it. I'll let you chew on that. What else?
I had something that came in, actually a meditation today, and it's happened. I find it kind of curious how the horse, subject of horse and animals came in, because this same feeling happened to me 15 years ago with a dear friend of mine who you've met, Ann Cates and John Patrick. And we were experimenting with putting sacred symbols in the middle of a ring, and then blindfolding me and sitting on the horse, and then she would guide the horse around in sacred symbols, and it would create an activation. Well, this created such an activation it blew the power tower up on top of the hill off.
Of course.
And it was so profound because it felt like a bolt of lightning came from the heaven and hit the top of my head and dropped into my stomach. Well, I just had that happen again today. It was so powerful that it brought so much light into my head. I felt like I was inside my mind looking out in a complete sphere.
Yes.
And just taking that in. It was
Pretty good.
pretty good.
Pretty good. I can still see it. I was watching that a little while ago. Absolutely. And again, how we want to use that so we don't have to damper it down, but we can quicken our frequency so we can actually carry it around, and you could become the energy source instead of blowing out the one on the hill. Infinite potential there. Absolute infinite potential. So when you can identify yourself as a light being in that way, without all the stuff that we place on that, because everyone's a light being, because the body's made of light. That's just a scientific fact. And so again, how could you use that? How can you wield that? If you wear that as you walk around the plaza or go out to dinner tonight or whatever, you're going to influence everyone around you. And that's called seeding. And that's sometimes the very purpose of our lives, It only came bolting into the top of your head because you've got some energies open up above that area. And it belongs to you, That's your nourishment. I visited a Brazilian man. I even forget his name. I don't know how I could. Shirley MacLaine wrote about him. A number of times, he was just a house painter, and he fell off a ladder, and when he fell off the ladder, boom, in came these galactics, in came these lights, and he would go into a room, and you could sit on the outside, and you would see blue and pink and white lightning. He would create lightning from his body, and he used to be terrified that he was going to die, he was going to blow his heart out because of it, if he didn't work. He needed to work just to release that amount of electricity. I can remember one time, I couldn't help myself. I just had to sneak around the outside of the house and look in just to make sure what was doing that. And I saw this big blue ball, electrofluidity kind of thing, ball behind his head. And he was just standing there doing this, and somebody was laying on a table, and the lightning flashes were all over. It was so amazing. If he can do that and heal people or shift their consciousness, you can use that. You can use that.
I can already see it.
Yes. Yeah. Those blue beings are really coming into the planet right now. So if I've seeded in you to see blue beings or blue flashes of light, so be it. What else?
Could you talk a little bit about the choice some of us make to be unconscious?
Whenever you say it in that way, it's kind of a way of beating yourself up. And so I would say, again, we get too breathless about you chose it so tough kind of thing. And so what I would say to you is that there's a purpose in your unconsciousness. So don't beat yourself up about it. Why aren't we rushing around healing the planet someplace, because the divine vibration needs these human energies. At any moment you may become fully conscious or part conscious over here, illuminated or enlightened over here or over here. What we need to do is to relax and to open up and realize that because we are the source, we're made of source, all of that is available to us. We go unconscious because we have forgotten our connections. One of the things that I would say about galactic beings specifically is they actually make contracts and they get their memory erased, and then they suffer a lot as humans. They either have way overamped emotional bodies or they have no emotional body. They just can't figure out how to play the human game. So if you could just realize that every experience you have is helping you and somebody else. I often say to people, I don't think of karma in this black and white, okay, you're going to pay it off in this lifetime. But my higher self taught me something. If people are hurting me, or if there's something negative happening, it belongs to me and I can answer it. There's a purpose for it. I need to give something back. So if you are having moments of unconsciousness or causing yourself to suffer, it won't help you to beat yourself up and say, why am I so unconscious? But rather to embrace the consciousness that you have and to recognize. I was having a great conversation with the former director of the Nijoni School, who just had some sessions a couple of days ago, and she was saying, at the Line Institute we always say, what is the gift? And she was rumbling around with that, and she was saying, in my situation, her situation that she was clearing, I don't feel like the gift is exactly it, because it means you should be, if you have the gift of a negative experience, then you're going to be more compassionate. You're going to be happy that you're alive, etc. She said, for me, it's more, I got the code. And I thought about that afterwards, how really amplified that perspective is. So in other words, if you are being unconscious, there's an encoding that's going on there. And because you're unconscious, you can't see how it's rebalancing 1,000 times 1,000 different energies and dimensions. So you never need to say, oh gosh, here I go again, I'm feeling sorry for myself, I'm feeling sad, I just hurt somebody else, blah, 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 blah. You are refining the human emotional body, which is what the entire cosmos, not just our galaxy, is wanting from us. And so through you, infinite people are growing. If you have a moment of self-hatred or shame or guilt or whatever that is, you're going to work that through. Nobody's up there going, she ought to be done with that guilt. Nobody's doing that. And so if you're feeling guilt for this moment, just take a deep breath. As we were talking about, let it percolate through and let that part of your true self come to the fore. You will rise out of it eventually. So conscious and unconscious, they are fake perceptions. And just as the Chinese have known for thousands of years, the yin flows into the yang flows into the yin, darkness flows into light flows into darkness. It's all the eternal pulse of the cosmos and the evolution of potential. So you can have a little giggle, I call it the cosmic boot, when you wake up and go, oh my God, I'm in the thick of this ridiculous whatever. No, you're just playing out a human experience, and as I said before, check and see if it's yours, or you're playing out your mother's experience. I've worked with so many, doing psychogenetics, I've worked with 4 and even 5 levels of family. And what I notice is that very often they will repeat each other's lifetime. Very predominant in negative experiences. I've seen 3 and 4 generations of women raped, for example. Is there something going on here? Just take that perspective and then apply it someplace else. Another emotion or another patterning. It's just, my higher self says that genetics is simply an addictive patterning. So it's not unconscious, it's just turning over here right now. Sometimes we have to move our face over in another direction. You are all those things. You are a fool and you are a divine being. You're an illuminated person and you're a killer. All of those things are a part of our experience. And it's fine. It's fine. Again, there's no timetable. We feel the push because we're ready. We don't feel the push because somebody else is saying you should. We feel the push because we're right almost at the top of that. You know, right at the top of the mountain. And we are preparing right now for a big explosion which happens again and again and again and again in ways sometimes we don't even know the explosion has occurred. Sometimes we do. You know? So what you want to do is be a little more gentle there, a little more gentle. So as we walk from this place tonight, carry the gentleness. The old concept that gentleness is weak is not true. It's simply, gentleness is that yin expansion which embraces and includes. And we must embrace and include our own choice to fumble around all we like as we open our consciousness.